Krishna consciousness. The material world is the sum total manifestation of the three modes of material nature, technically called the Pradhana. The Vedic hymns, Sarvam hi etad Brahma, Mandukya Upanishad 2, Tasmad etad Brahma Nama Rupam, Annam cha Jayate, Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.9, and in the Bhagavad Gita 14.3, Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma, indicate that everything in the material world is a manifestation of Brahman. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. In the Ishopanishad, it is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman or Krishna, and thus everything belongs to him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, that he is the proprietor of everything, and that therefore everything is engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the results of his activities, whether virtuous or sinful. Even one's material body, being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action, can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. It is then beyond contamination by sinful reactions, exactly as the lotus leaf, though remaining in the water, is not wet. The Lord also says in the Gita 3.30, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya, resign all works unto me, Krishna. The conclusion is that a person without Krishna consciousness acts according to the concept of the material body and senses, but a person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna and should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinami Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Nishatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. So it's a wonderful verse from Bhagavad Gita, fifth chapter, 10th verse, and let's understand the verse a little more before we proceed further. So the verse says, Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti ha lipyate nasapapena padmapatram vibham hasa. And there are some of the words which we need to pay attention to in this verse before we even proceed to understand what the purport is and what Prabhupada is trying to explain. So first thing is, Prabhupada is writing Brahmani adhaya karma. You see, there is a verb karoti. Karoti is to work. So we have to do our work, karmani karoti. But that karmani karoti is qualified by Krishna. First thing is Brahmani adhaya. Karmani karoti, there is actually no exemption, no exception. We have to do our work. Even in third chapter earlier, Krishna had told, Nahi kaschit kshanam api jatu tishtati akarmakrit. Without performing our action, we can't even live for a moment. So that choice is not there. We have to do our work. But how we should do the work is something which is mentioned in this wonderful verse. Brahmani adhaya. First thing. Brahmani is referring to unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adhaya, resigning. Okay, this is a very interesting word. Prabhupada has translated the word adhaya as resigning. So you have to resign everything that you are doing unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we'll understand that what is the meaning of the word resigning and how in a material connotation and a spiritual connotation things are different. How resigning work to Krishna is the best way to do activity. Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha. So the second thing that Krishna is telling is Sangam Tyaktva, without attachment. Do your work as having resigned to the Supreme Lord. At the same time, being unattached, without attachment. So duty and attachment are two key words here, which people often get confused. And since they don't understand what is the meaning of this, they have problems in life. So duty has to be performed, but it has to be performed without attachment. Then what will happen? Lipyatena sapapena padma patram vibhambasa. Very few places Krishna gives some analogy or example. And one such rare, not really rare, but not so often, not so frequently, you find these analogies, but wherever it comes, those analogies are very powerful, very, very powerful. Actually, we need to meditate on those analogies. That's the reason they are given. Padma patram imhambasa. Ambasa is water, Padma patra. Padma patra, another name of the word Padma is Pankaja. So Pankaja means it is born from Panka or mud. Even if it is born in a muddy environment, Pankaja, surrounded by mud or Panka, but it is Ibhambasa, it is untouched by the surroundings. So if you see this analogy which Krishna is giving, Padma Patram Ibhambasa, then he's telling Lipyatena Sapapena. And unfortunately, because of lack of knowledge, as Kunti Maharani says, Avidya Kama Karma Bhi. Because of ignorance, we are doing some actions. Avidya Kama, because of ignorance, we are developing wrong kinds of desires. That this will give me happiness. This way I can be happy. And that Kama leads to karma. And we indulge or do those activities. So Avidya Kama Karma Bhi. So when we are doing that, what we are not realizing is we are getting bound by the reactions. But here it is mentioned, if somebody is working Brahmani Adhaya and Sangam Tyaktva, then like Padma Patra, which is there in the midst of mud, is untouched by that, or in the midst of water and untouched by that, similarly, Nacha Lipyate Nasapapena. Similarly, one will not be bound by the sinful reactions. That's the verse. And equally powerful purport. So whatever time we have, we can spend some time to understand this verse. This can be seen in multiple different ways, but let's see. Let's read the translation one more time. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by simple action as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So I have broken down the same way that I did in the morning. One has to perform his duty. One who performs his duty. Actually, one who is not performing his duty is not even, it doesn't even exist, that kind of a situation. So duty performance is a must. We have to perform our duty. But very interestingly, Krishna says how we should perform that duty. Performing the duty without attachment, Sangam Tyaktva, surrendering the results, Brahmani Adhaya, to whom? Unto the Supreme Lord. You can't surrender to anyone and everyone. The activity that is performed has to be performed without attachment. At the same time, the results have to be surrendered, and surrendered not to anyone and everyone, but unto the Supreme Lord. He will be unaffected. Actually, it is very difficult to remain unaffected in this material world, because in the beginning, the first line of the purport, the second line of the purport, Prabhupada says the material world is a sum total manifestation of the three modes of material nature, technically called the Pradhana. So the material world is a manifested material world. Here, everybody is influenced by these three modes of material nature. This is a sum total of these three modes of material nature is called Pradhana. Since we are all part of this material world, we are constantly under the influence of these three modes of material nature. It is difficult to remain unaffected. We all get affected. But here is a clue Krishna is giving. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by what? By sinful action. What affects us is our simple actions. Even a desire to enjoy this material world, the fruitive mentality, brings a reaction along with it. And when we perform action motivated by those fruitive desires, automatically we get bound. But here is a clue that one will be unaffected by the simple reaction, by the simple action. And the example is, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. So if you have not seen a lotus, I mean, you should spend some time in seeing all the examples which Bhagavatam gives of Bhagavad Gita is very powerful for us to understand in reality how it is. Usually the lotus grows in muddy water. This is the example, this is the picture which should remain with you when we're talking about this verse. Now, the first thing that we should see is Brahmani Adhaya. As I was mentioning, resigning to the Lord. That's what the literal translation of the word Adhaya, resigning unto Brahmani, is the Supreme Personality of God. This aspect of Brahmani Adhaya is a very important one to understand, because if we don't understand why we should do our activities resigning to the Lord, we will never do this. So to explain this concept, first I thought I will give you an example of two verses. I mean, we know Bhagavad Gita, second chapter is called the entire Bhagavad Gita summarized. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is there in the second chapter, and this is one of the most popular verses that we hear. If anybody is had any conversation with someone, especially who's from India, they'll say about karmanyeva adhikaraste. One line they say, ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhurma te sangosto karmani. They are not aware. But these two verses, if we just keep side by side and understand, they have a lot of similarities. So if you see the title of this verse, Krishna, Prabhupada is writing Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness, right? If you are familiar with the chanting of Bhagavad Gita from Mahabharata, every chapter when it ends, actually it is very interesting to know. The chapter when it ends, any chapter, like the first chapter is ended, and it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita that iti, sorry, where is that? Om Tatsat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Sastre. So these are the words which are used, and then Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, and then whatever the chapter is. So if it is second chapter, it is Sankhya Yoga or Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So like that, there are different Sanskrit names which are given for each chapter. Right? Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu. This is actually one of the Upanishad. That's how beginning in the introduction, Prabhupada writes that this is Gita Upanishad. Brahma Vidyayam. This talks about Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of self-realization. Brahmani Adhaya Karma. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Sastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade. This chapter is called Sannyasa Yoga, fifth chapter. But only when we see the translation by a pure devotee that we understand. Otherwise, Sannyasa Yoga can be very misleading. Either we do activity or we take renunciation. So it's a 1 or 0. There is nothing in between. So you don't do activity, that is renunciation, or you do activity, and then the activity is binding you. But here Prabhupada is giving an example of action in Krishna consciousness, Brahmani Adhaya. Third chapter is Karma Yoga, but fifth chapter is Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. How living in this material world, performing our duties, yet remaining unattached or remaining free from the sinful reaction is something which this verse particularly is talking about, and this chapter in general is talking about. So if we see these two verses side by side, first thing what the second chapter 47th verse is telling is karmanye eva adhikaraha te. Karmanye eva, only adhikara, only thing that we have in our control is, or in our privilege is to do actions. That is the only adhikar. Karmanye eva adhikarate. But how that karma has to be done? Brahmanyadhaya karma. That has to be done resigning or depending or surrendering to the Supreme Lord. Ma phaleshu kadachana, ma phaleshu kadachana, sangam tyaktva karotu yaha. So do the actions, but don't get attached to the results. Here also sangam tyaktva karoti yaha. Action has to be performed as a matter of duty, but has to be performed without attachment. Sangam tyaktva karoti yaha. Lipyate na sa papena padma patram vibhamasa. Ma karma phala heturpur mate sangostu akarmani. Never ever consider yourself to be the cause of the action. Ma karma phala hetu. Hetu is the cause. Karma phala, whatever the results, actually, we are not the cause of the actions. We are not the cause of the results. Ma karma phala heturpur mate sangostu akarmani. Whereas don't get attached to inaction. This is what Krishna says. So if we are doing actions for Krishna, surrendering everything to Krishna, then how is it that we are not the cause of the results of the actions? This is an interesting point to know. And in 11th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna actually mentions to Arjuna, very interesting verse, Nimitta matram bhava sabhyasachin. If you know that verse, it says, Nimitta matram bhava sabhyasachin. Arjuna is addressed as Sabhyasachin, who's expert in shooting arrows. And Krishna is telling him that you just become an instrument, right? You just become an instrument because the verse actually says, Nimitta matram bhava sabhyasachin. Tasmatvam uttishta yasho labhasva jitva satrum bhungsva rajyam samvradhani maya vaite nihataha purvamev. Actually, all the soldiers are already killed. It's one may think, if Krishna has already killed purvam, maya vaite nihataha purvamev. I have already killed them. Nimitta matram bhava sabhyasachin. He is addressing Arjuna as Sabhyasachin, who's dexterous, who's expert in shooting arrows. And at the same time, he is telling that I have already killed them. So like that, when we are performing action completely surrendered to Krishna, then Krishna actually takes care of, he has already performed what needs to be done. It is just by becoming an instrument, even though a ghastly warfare like this, where Arjuna was involved, but he was not lipyate papena. Otherwise, if we are trying to think that I am the doer, ma karma phala heturbhur, but if I say, no, I am the doer, I did this. That is what most of us think. And because of me, this has happened. And when we act with that consciousness, then the false ego makes us bound to this material world and we get reactions for our actions. Now let's understand this one line which Krishna is telling about resigning to the Lord, Brahmani Adhaya. Why should we do our actions resigning to the Lord? What is the beauty or what is the purpose behind that? To understand that, there is a very beautiful verse from Bhagavatam. This comes in the 7th canto, spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, the 9th chapter, 11th verse. So this verse says, Naivat manaha prabhur ayam nijalabha purno manam janad abidushaha karuno vrinite yad yaj jano bhagavate vidadhita manam tat chatmane pratimukhasya yatha mukhashri. It's a very, very beautiful example, very nice verse. So the Lord, Prabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is addressed here as Prabhu, Naivat manaha ayam nijalabha purna. The Lord is self-satisfied. He is complete. Nijalabha purna. He is always satisfied in himself. So it is not that the Lord is looking for us to surrender or to accept our service. He is incomplete. He's looking that, when this person is going to do, then I'll become full or I'll be happy. No. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Naivatmanaha Prabhur Ayam Nijalabha Purna. Nijalabha Purna, he is always satisfied in himself. Then Manam Janad Abhidusaha Karuna Vrinite. So why does he ask someone to engage in devotional service, or what happens when somebody is engaging in devotional service or doing actions completely surrendering to the Lord? What happens with that? So when something is offered to him, the offering by the Lord's mercy is for the benefit of the devotee. Manam Janad Abhidusaha Karuno Vrinite. By Lord's mercy, when somebody surrenders to him and performs action, that action is for his own benefit. Because the Lord does not need service from anyone. And there is a beautiful example which Prahlad Maharaj gives in the last line. Tat Chatmane Pratimukhasya Yatha Mukhasri. If one's face is decorated, then the reflection of one's face in a mirror is also seen to be decorated. If you want to see your reflection to be decorated, then decorate your face and it will be decorated. Like that, when we are engaging in devotional service of the Lord, and not that the Lord is looking for it, that is good for us, because that is what is our constitutional position. By that, when the Lord becomes pleased and satisfied, we also become satisfied. Tachatmane pratimukhasya yatha mukhasri. Our scriptures are actually filled with this example. The example of Draupadi, when Durvasa Muni comes, when they were in exile and there was nothing remaining there in their house. Durvasa Muni with all his disciples, they came to Pandavas to have some prasadam, encouraged and misguided with some evil intention by Duryodhan, so that if Durvasa Muni doesn't get his prasadam, he will curse because he's known for his anger. So when he reaches there, Draupadi had that Akshay Patra, the mystical pot by which unlimited food can be made. But that only works as long as she has not finished her prasadam. And unfortunately, everybody had finished, and deliberately Duryodhan had sent in a time when, knowing that they would have finished their lunch, and even the last vessel, everything was washed, and they were in trouble. And then Krishna appears, and somehow Draupadi finds one grain and gives it to Krishna. And when Krishna takes that, Yasmin Tushte Jagat Tushta. When Krishna was satisfied with that one grain, all their hunger got satisfied completely. So Naivatmanaha Prabhu Rayam Nijalabha Purna. The Lord really doesn't need any of our services. Neither, our services are so great, sometimes we feel proud that we are engaging in his service, so we're doing a big thing. Nothing actually. It is for our own benefit. Prabhupada gives an example of the different parts of our body. They went for a strike one day, to understand this point more. So they went for a strike. So the hand thought, I'm working hard so much, the whole day I'm busy doing some hard work. And the legs also thought to themselves that we are walking, we are going, we're doing so much hard work to get the money. Mouth and other, this jaws and all, they also told that we are chewing, we are doing the hard work of digesting it. Then all these limbs or all these bodily parts, they thought to themselves, they work so hard, and ultimately the hard work is being enjoyed by the stomach, the belly. So they decided that they would go on a strike, and nothing should go to the stomach. Let's teach a lesson to the stomach. What happened was, one by one, the different limbs, the bodily parts, they became weak. Nothing went into the mouth, nothing went into the belly. So there was no energy coming out of it. All of the bodily parts suffered. Similarly, when we are not watering the root of the tree and watering different parts of the trees like leaves or branches or twigs, then the tree is never nourished. And like that, since we all are part and parcel of the Lord, Mamevamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Mana Shashtani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karsati. Mamevamsa Jiva Loke. Since we are eternally part and parcel of the Lord, when we engage in service of Him, we become satisfied. There is another beautiful verse in Bhagavatam, not in Bhagavatam, in Mukundamala Stotra, which comes. I want to share that verse with you. This verse is spoken by King Kulashekara Alvar. And the verse is very, very nice to understand the same point which we're trying to see, the first one, Brahmani Adaya Karmani. Fortunately, I could not put it in the slides. Let me just stop sharing. So this verse in the Mukundamala Stotra, it comes in the 17th verse of Mukundamala Stotra. It says, Nathe nah purushottame tri jagatam ekadhipe chetasa sevye swasya padasya datri pare narayane tishtati yam kanchit purushadhamam katipaya gramesham alparthadam sevayai Mrigyamahe Naram Aho Mudha Varakavayam. The translation of this verse is very nice. It says, our master, the personality of Godhead Narayana, who alone rules the three worlds, whom one can serve in meditation, and who happily shares his personal domain, is manifest before us. Yet still we beg for the service of some minor lord of a few villages, some lowly man who can only meagerly reward us. Alas, what foolish wretches we are. So what this verse is trying to tell is the Lord is the supreme proprietor of these three worlds. He rules the three worlds and one can serve Him. But look at our, how foolish we are and how unfortunate we are. And the Lord is happy to share the entire His personal domain with us. We are begging service for someone who is a master of a small village. Yet still we beg for the service of some minor lord of a few villages, some lowly man who can only meagerly reward us. Something we get some paltry money, something from someone who's engaging in His service. How unfortunate we are. That living the Supreme Lord Narayana, His position, who is the proprietor of all three worlds, we are engaging in service of a very lowly man. This is what King Kulashekara says. Prabhupada tells the story of one man who had this desire to engage in service of the highest person, the biggest, the most powerful person, whoever it may be. That there was a man who wanted to serve the topmost person. So he saw that the landlord in the village is the most powerful. He is lord of lands, and he's getting a lot of money out of it. And everybody he's lending money whenever they are in distress. So he thought I should serve him. So he was serving him, and one day he saw that this landlord, whatever money he's getting or whatever land he has, he's paying tax to that for the tax for the land that he has to the tax collector. So then he realized, oh, the tax collector is superior or supreme to this landlord. Let me serve the tax collector. And then he went and started serving the tax collector. And then he saw the tax collector is collecting tax not from just one landlord that he used to serve earlier, but many such landlords. And then, but one day this tax collector took all the money and went to a king to give all the money that he has collected to the king. Then this man saw, so this tax collector is not the topmost. It is the king who's the topmost. Let me go and serve the king. So he started serving the king, and the king was very powerful. He had many provinces, he had many tax collectors, and under many tax collectors, many landlords were there. And this man was very happy that he's serving the king, who's the topmost. But one day he saw that the king, he removed his regal, the royal dress, and in disguise, in very common dress, he went to a sadhu who was a mendicant who was living in a forest, and he was bowing down before him, paying his full dandavat. So then this man realized that actually the king is not the topmost. He is paying his respects and obeisances to a sadhu. So let me serve the sadhu. And when he comes and says that my desire was to serve the topmost person in this material world, and I have come to this conclusion that you are the topmost, I'm very happy to serve you. But the sadhu said, no, actually I'm not the topmost. I am the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the conclusion of this story, which Prabhupada illustrates in one of the lectures somewhere, is that whom are we trying to serve? Actually, Bhagavad Gita says, sorry, not Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Kamadhinam katidhana katidhat. That verse, in that it says that actually from many lifetimes we have been servant. We are servant of someone or other. We cannot remain not being serving. And whom we have been serving? Mostly we have been serving our senses, our mind, and that senses and mind, when they are engaged in the service of someone who promises us to give some paltry rewards. And by doing that, we have never been satisfied, not in this life, many lifetimes before also. We have been doing the same thing. And they are so cruel that despite knowing that we have been serving them diligently, regularly, very faithfully, still they are not satisfied with our service. Anytime we try to satisfy our desire, our kama, which are unlimited, ever increasing, then it increases with double intensity. So that is why we have to serve the Supreme Lord. Now, the time that we have, I wanted you to see another very beautiful section in Bhagavatam to understand this verse. And this comes in the prayers of Brahma. In Bhagavatam, this prayers of Brahma is very interesting. So Brahma, before the creation happens, he prays to Lord Vishnu, and this is called Brahma's prayers for creative energy. In that, these 3-4 verses very interestingly brings one aspect as to what one should pray, in what mood one should do action in this material world, and how we can learn from Brahma, who is the supreme creator of this material world. Interestingly, Brahma has a very typical, very unique characteristic. Every day when he sleeps and gets up in the morning, he forgets how to do this creation. And we know, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Mushyanti Yat Suraya. The Lord gives that knowledge in the heart. So these are prayers of Brahma to the Supreme Lord before the creation starts. So interestingly, like Brahma, we also have our own activities to do. And it's not like we forget, but since we are here in this material world, engaged in this materialistic activities, what kind of prayers we should have? Very beautiful example from Brahma's life, where he's telling, Yannabhi Padma Bhavanad Ahamasmai Idya Loko Trayopakarano Yadanugrahena Tasmai Namaste Udarastha Bhavaya Yoga Nidravasana Vikasan Nalinekshanaya. So the translation of this verse is nice. O object of my worship, I am born from the house of your lotus navel for the purpose of creating the universe by your mercy. All these planets of the universe were stationed within your transcendental abdomen while you were enjoying sleep. Now, your sleep having ended, your eyes are opening like lotuses blossoming in the morning. And then he says, let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world. And by his 6 transcendental opulences, he maintains all for their ultimate happiness. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create, for I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. This is the first prayer that he says. It's telling, Soyam samasta jagatam suhrudaika atma satvena yan mridayate bhagavan bhagena teneva me drisham anusprashtat yathaham srakshyami purvavad idam pranato priyosav. So actually the Lord is Jagatpati. He is, there is one verse in Bhagavatam which Sukadeva Goswami prays. He uses different adjectives. Dhiyapati, Yagyapati. So the Lord is the controller, proprietor of everything in this material world. Yet the word which is used, even in Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, the last verse, Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yagyadapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, Gyantva Mam Santi Varcha. Bhoktaram Yagyadapasam. Actually, all the sacrifices that we are performing, the enjoyer of all that sacrifice is the Supreme Lord. Bhoktaram Yagyadapasam. And sacrifices and the austerities. But very important thing is Suhridam. He's also our best friend. He's the biggest well-wisher who's situated in our heart. So here also, Soyam samasta jagatam suhrudaika atma. The Lord, even though he is very powerful, he is the controller of so many different things, yet he is the friend. Let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world. And by his 6 transcendental opulences, he maintains all for their ultimate happiness. He maintains all for their ultimate happiness. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create. For I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create. Introspection, the word is a very important word. Even in our life also, we need to introspect. What kind of activities we are engaging in. Even if it is a small activity like maintaining our family because of our attachment or something, whatever we are doing, that activity that we are performing, we have to do an introspection to see actually the empowerment is coming by the Lord. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, be empowered with the introspection to create. For I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. In the next verse, he says, the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, is always the benefactor of the surrendered souls. What happens? Brahmani adhaya karma. When somebody becomes surrendered to the Lord, the Supreme Lord is always the benefactor of the surrendered souls. His activities are always enacted through his internal potency. There is a word used here is Ramaya Atma Saktya. See the word. Esa Prapanna Barado Ramaya Atma Saktya. So Ramaya Atma Saktya. There is an internal energy of the Lord. When we surrender to the Lord, then there is an internal potency of the Lord which works, and the internal potency is extremely powerful. So here is the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead is always the benefactor of the surrendered souls. His activities are always enacted through his internal potency. Rama, the goddess of fortune. I pray only to engage in his service in the creation of the material world. And I pray that I not be materially affected by my work, for thus I may be able to give up the false prestige of being the creator. See, when Brahma is telling the false prestige of being the creator, let it be. Let me get out of that ego. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get materially affected. And he wants to work under the internal potency. In Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned, Mahatmanas tu mam patham daivim prakriti mashrita. What is that internal potency that is mentioned here? What is the internal? How can we be in touch with that internal potency? When we are chanting the names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That first word, Hare, is actually referring to that internal potency. We have to be engaged in our activities. We have to be engaged in devotional service. We have to pray to the Lord to remain always in the internal potency of the Lord. Example of internal potency is given at various places. One thing which comes to my mind, just that, we are approaching Rath Yatra. When the Rath Yatra used to happen, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present in Jagannath Puri, there used to be loud, uproarious kirtan. So he had divided the kirtanias into 7 groups. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally used to expand in 7 different forms, and he used to lead the kirtan in the 7 groups. And the entire mass of people who come to attend or participate in the Yatra used to feel that internal potency. In Chaitanya Charitamrita also there is a verse which says, if we are able to remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before starting any work, even if that is the most difficult work, it gets done like this easily. Whereas if we forget to do that, if we are not able to remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then even if it is the easiest work, it becomes very difficult. So that the work or the complexity or the amount of work that we are doing can be reduced when we are acting under the internal potency of the Lord. The Lord has 2 potencies, internal and external potency. So here it is mentioned, Brahma is telling that, oh Lord, you are always the benefactor of the surrendered souls, and your activities are always enacted through your internal potency. So I pray only to engage in his service in the creation. Creation is not an ordinary thing. But by being engaged in the internal potency of the Lord, by being engaged in the service of the Lord, this creation also becomes easily done. Then he's telling, I'll go to the next one. This is the beautiful one. Some beautiful words are used here. So, Adabhra Karuna Bhagavan Vibridha. The Lord who is supreme and is the oldest of all is unlimitedly merciful. I wish that he may smilingly bestow his benediction upon me by opening his lotus eyes. He can uplift the entire cosmic creation and kindly remove our dejection by sweetly speaking his directions. So, see, this is, he can uplift the entire cosmic creation and kindly remove our dejection by sweetly speaking his directions. The Lord has given his directions by sweetly speaking in the form of Bhagavad Gita. He can uplift our entire material consciousness. And here Brahma is praying that Lord who is supreme and is the oldest of all is unlimitedly merciful. It's not like, the Lord is also, he's the controller, he's the proprietor, and he's not merciful. No, he's unlimitedly merciful. I wish that he may smilingly bestow his benediction upon me, opening his lotus eyes. Before I close, I just want to share my closing thoughts, comments from this verse only. So we saw that Brahmani Adhaya Karmani Svakarotu Iha Lipyatena Sapapena Padma Patra Minghambasa. There are few things which Prabhupada mentions towards the end, that the Lord also says in the Gita 3.330, Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya, resign all works unto me. The conclusion is that a person without Krishna consciousness, this is very important, this is the conclusion, is that a person without Krishna consciousness acts according to the concept of the material body and senses. He acts according to the concept of material body and senses. But a person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna and should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna. Since Prabhupada is mentioning in this purport about this verse 3.30, it's a very important verse to know. Even if you have heard of this verse, it's very, very, very interesting. The verse is, Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya Adhyatma Chetasa Nirasir Nirmamo Bhutva Yuddhasva Bigata Jvara. Therefore, Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So, it's a very, very, very powerful and practical verse. Surrendering all your works unto me, Sanyasya Adhyatma Chetasa, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit. Nirasir Nirmamaha. Nirasir is without desires for profit. Nirmama is without ownership. No claims to proprietorship. And free from lethargy. Vigata Jvaraha. Fight. Actually, fight or activity that we are doing in this material world, we are not bereft of it. We are not exempt from it. We have to work. we have to take care of our responsibilities. But while taking care of the responsibilities, we can remain untouched. And the formula is given in this 5th chapter as well as in this 3rd chapter also. And in purport, actually, Prabhupada mentions that this verse is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. This is the purpose. How nobody is telling that, you take renunciation because the actions that we are performing in this material world are always going to give us sinful reactions. That's not the idea. The idea is to engage in actions. But how do we engage in actions? This is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. So the Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties, as if in military discipline. So Prabhupada is giving this example. Military discipline is a very important one because our mind and senses are so difficult to control and they're so agitated that even to hear Krishna's instructions to spend time, it is not easy for us because we are not convinced about it. That is why some of the things have to be done at the beginning little forcibly, like getting up early in the morning, coming to the mode of goodness, taking prasadam, chanting 16 rounds. If you have not chanted 16 rounds, whatever fixed number of rounds you are chanting, so with the purpose of soon coming to 16 rounds, chant every day, following 4 regulative principles. It has to be done as if in military discipline. Sometimes even devotees, even though they are engaged in devotional service, they have understood the importance of chanting 16 rounds, have taken the vow, yet they find it difficult. Or even following 4 regulative principles, they find it difficult. So that is why the Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties as if in military discipline. Such an injunctions may take things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. Today morning, we were seeing the 2 words which are used for the living entity for all of us in this material world: fallen and forgotten conditioned souls. Fallen and forgotten. So we are conditioned and we are forgetful of our real position. So that's why such an injunction makes things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. Our constitutional position is to engage in loving devotional service. By that, we will be happy, satisfied in this material world. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord was his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. This statement is a very important statement which I wanted to highlight. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. So this is a very important thing, because the Supreme Lord is giving instructions. I don't have to consider, what is this? Why these are words given? As Brahma is telling, if I hear the sweet words of the Lord and I follow, that means I am already under the influence of the internal potency of the Lord. Everything else will be taken care. So don't need to worry. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute his order. Just execute the order. Just execute. And this holds true not just for the Lord, but also for the representative of the Lord, like Guru's words. This has to be taken. Just follow it. It has been told. It has been given to you. Without consideration, just execute it. Prabhupada says in many places in Bhagavatam, one has to become a yes man for the spiritual master. And he quotes also at various places the example of, I think, Parsuram, which I had told, how he executed this order of his father. I'll keep that for another thing. But important thing is, without considering what is that, one has to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetasa. Nirasi means that one has to act on the order of the master, but should not expect fruitive results. The cashier may count millions of dollars for employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mai or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over everything, over anything. The consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become vigata jvara, without feverish mentality or lethargy. This word also is a very important word, vigata jvara, lethargy. We also get sometimes lethargic. Lethargic doesn't just mean becoming lazy, but it's a reluctance to do our duties, because we get covered, we get influenced by these three gunas. So there is a reluctance or hesitation. But Prabhupada is telling that there could be many reluctance to execute the stern order, but one has to shake it off. One has to throw this off and engage in this. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties must be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation. So this is something that we can learn from this verse. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions, anything that you liked, or any comments or any doubts. You can please ask.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I didn't know Brahma forgot his creation every day. I thought it was only one when he was born, when he appeared. That time I thought that's when the knowledge was imparted. But this idea is new information. I didn't know this.
So what happens is every day either the knowledge is stolen by those Madhukaitava, or he forgets, and some different ways the Lord imparts that knowledge. That's how Brahma is. Interestingly, compared to other, this is this thing I feel, Lakshmi or Shiva and the four Kumaras, the other three sampradayas, starting people, they are engaged in devotional service continuously. But Brahma is something unique. Sometimes we also forget our constitutional position, we forget our duties, we forget Krishna consciousness. And then Brahma comes back, and his prayers are so wonderful. In Ramayana also, there is an example of Sugriva when he was made the king of Kiskinda, and he was supposed to help Lord Ram in his journey to search Mother Sita. For 4 months during this Chaturmasya, when it used to rain, he just forgot what is his duty, and then got engaged in sense gratification. He forgot his real goal at that time, and then after 4 months, when nothing had happened, Lakshmana got very angry. And Ramayana mentions when he goes, he just walks. His walk is so powerful that the entire Kiskinda was shaking. And Sugriva got terrified. What happened? Why Lakshmana is so angry? And then when Lakshmana reminds him, he was about to kill him for his forgetfulness. He comes back to his constitutional position. Lakshmana is Adi Guru, Shesha. So like that also, sometimes when we are not in association of devotees, or when we are not following the instructions, we also become forgetful. And that is why the association can help one to come back to the track.
Okay, thanks, Prabhu.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna. You have explained that Prabhupada has explained that Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord. He had only to execute the order. So the same way, we also have to follow the instruction of Srila Prabhupada, because the instruction of Srila Prabhupada is nothing but the instruction of the Lord himself. Okay. Right, Prabhu?
Yes, 100% right. There is, I was hesitating to get into that story, but I have shared this earlier also. Parsuram, when he was instructed, actually, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'll tell you that reference. Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned when Mother Sita was pregnant, Lord Ram instructed his brothers to drop her in the ashram of Valmiki, because some people have started commenting. So at that point in time, nobody was willing to do that, because it is that kind of a situation, and Mother Sita, how they can drop her in the ashram of Valmiki Rishi. So that is where Lakshmana does this, and he is reminded of this particular instruction in Bhagavatam, which is mentioned that when Parsuram was instructed by his father, he killed his mother Renuka. He just chopped her off, because that was the instruction given by his father, and his father was his spiritual master. He followed his instructions without considering what it is. Of course, she got back to life and everything. It was a test, but she did that. Like that, Lakshmana also took the instruction of Lord Ram, who is not just the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as his spiritual master. Like, he was instructed and he did that. In that connection it comes. So yes, for the disciples of a spiritual master, you take the example of Prabhupada himself in his life, how he followed the instruction of his spiritual master to the last breath of his life. Never gave it up. Similarly, all of us also should follow without lethargy, without vigata jvaraha, following the 16 rounds of chanting, quality rounds, 4 regulative principles. Every day we should do, without any fear, without consideration. Word that, yeah. Anything else? Ojas, you have anything to share? Anything that you heard that you from the class you want to repeat?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Ojas
Hare
is my child's name.
Ojas is your?
My child's name, actually.
Was it okay? No problem. So what is your name?
My name is Harish Prabhu.
Harish. Okay. Harish, anything you want to share based on what we spoke today?
Honestly, Prabhu, it's a very complex information today what you have shared, and I think it's my lifetime to understand and follow that, because I've been an arduous listener to these satsangs. Yet today's session is somewhat, I would like to tap into Panduranga Das Prabhu's personal time. That is what I was, because I usually have lengthy discussions with Prabhu to have a better, clear understanding. I'm a novice in this.
Actually, the information shared is not complicated. It's very simple. Krishna's words are not meant to confuse us. Where the confusion or the complexity lies, it lies in our mind. Krishna is telling simply that Brahmani adhaya karmani. Just do your activity surrendering to me.
Yes, Prabhu. So when you said this, and you said all works to be done, right? I mean, and we have to take care of our responsibilities, yet at the same time leave it to the God. That is what you mentioned, the resigning part. So thanks for explaining such a very lucid manner. Yet, this is like what all, because in this material life we have got from 24/7 so many activities and so many thoughts to fulfill. Yes, apart from chanting and following regulative principles, the rest of the time is completely into material and sense gratification. But how should I conduct myself? I mean, the thought process itself. It is not just leaving the results to the God, but I'm perplexed with the thought process, actually.
No, you see, what is the motivation behind our activity? Not that material activity has to be given up. So if I'm doing a material activity, what is the spirit behind that? If the spirit is for enjoying my senses, that has to be given up. Whereas if the spirit or the motivation behind that activity is to please the Lord, I can please the Lord by acting in material work, by doing my work, by earning money, by engaging in Krishna service. There is no problem with that. I can have my children, I can have my wife, I can give them Krishna conscious, and I can make them Krishna conscious. That's fine. It's not like it is not allowed or anything. That's all. So it's always the spirit, the intent, the motive behind doing any material activity. As long as Atmendriya Priti Vancha Dhare Kamana, if we are trying to do some activity, forgetting Krishna, satisfying our senses, that is called Kama. When we are doing an activity where we are thinking how I can engage this activity in Krishna's service, that is called Dhare Premana. That is Prema. So our whole scriptures, the scriptural injunctions are meant to give us that ultimate benefit. How nacha papena lipyate, how we don't get bound by this sinful reactions. And it is simply possible by my Brahmani Adhaya Karmani, by surrendering to the Lord and working in a very detached manner and doing everything for Krishna's satisfaction, because that is what is our constitutional position.
So, Prabhu, then you have quoted one example from Prahlad's Maharaj's, seventh canto of Bhagavatam, that obviously Lord doesn't need us to please Him, and whatever it is like seeing our decorated face in the mirror.
Right.
So, then how should my thought process be in this context? Whatever I'm doing, when I'm not here to please Lord Krishna, and whatever I'm doing is this, it only satisfies me.
No. I think so. The verse that I quoted, it says that the Lord doesn't need our service. Sometimes in material world, we think, the master has few servants, and unless the servants serve, master remains unsatisfied or unfulfilled. But that is not the case with the Lord. The Lord is always self-satisfied. He is filled in his own this thing. He doesn't need any external service from us or from anyone else. He is filled. So then what is the point doing the service? When we do the service, when somebody understands this by the mercy of the Lord, it is beneficial for that person who's doing that service. So when we are engaging in service, not that we are trying to, by our service, the Lord is any need of it, but we get purified, because that is what is our constitutional position. And the decoration part, it is like you want to see your reflection, beautiful reflection on the mirror, then you have to decorate your face. Similarly, when we are engaging in service of the Lord, that engagement of the service of the Lord gives the reflection is we ourselves feel satisfied in life. Does that help?
Yes, Prabhu, partially. But
okay. So you can ask what is no problem. I mean, if you have any question which is coming directly right now, you can ask.
So it's like okay, you buy clothes, you buy your material things and stuff to carry out your activities, but again it is not to serve Krishna, obviously, because at one point of time you would actually visit temple in your vehicle or the clothes you buy, but the rest of the time it is only for ourselves.
Yeah, so what is happening?
Activities. All these material activities, you get a promotion, you try for a new job or establish a business, or thinking of establishing a business, and even though we incur losses in our business, we should be unaltered. That is what you say. So aren't we responsible to the other employees or our higher superiors when we don't get our job done for some external factors? So what should I answer, or how should I conduct my mind in that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when you are doing your duties in a material organization, working under someone, looking for promotions, everything you should do to the best of your ability. But as I said, what is the motivation behind working? Is it for my own senses, or is it for engaging whatever I am getting in Krishna's service? So basic purpose, basic understanding, our constitutional position is to render service to Krishna. We are forgetful of that. That is the reason we are suffering in this material world. So now in a particular case, like in your case or in somebody else's case, somebody who's a grihastha, who's working outside, who's doing something, everything you can do to maintain your soul and body together. You are in a particular position based on your guna, karma and kala. You have to engage in any activity, material activities. Nobody is denying that. what is the purpose behind engaging in those activities? Is it just meant for my own sense gratification? All that thing that I'm earning from that is just meant for me and my extended families, or am I engaging that in Krishna's service? So the moment I'm engaging in Krishna's service, that activity itself, even though it looks like material from outer, externally gross eyes, it becomes spiritual. That is what he's telling, Padmapatram Ibhambhasa. Every activity that we are doing can be spiritualized. There is nothing in this world which cannot be spiritualized. There is so let's say I'm taking food. Simple thing Krishna says that yajna sista sinasanto muchyante sarva kilvishayi ye pachanti agham papa te pachanti atma karana. So if we are just eating it for our own tongue, for the pleasure of our tongue, without offering it to the Lord, that all this motive, then it is called te pachanti agham papa. Then we are eating verily sins. Whereas the same food with love and attention, even though the Lord doesn't want that, when we offer it to the Lord, and Lord, this is what I have, this is the best I could prepare with the activities that I have, and I'm offering it to the Lord, and I'm taking the remnant, that becomes prasadam, and it purifies our existence. Chaitanya Charitamrita gives an example in the same line of a Brahmana who was very poor. Somebody can say, well, I don't have even money, I can't even offer, for example. Unfortunately, this is not our situation. Our situation is we have a lot of money and we want to spend it for ourselves. When it actually comes to engaging in devotional service, we hesitate. We make some that sugar crystal or something, that chana, and that is what is given to the Lord. Not like that. That example of one poor Brahmana in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that he didn't have any money, but every day in his mind he'll cook wonderful prasadam, delicious prasadam, and he'll offer it. And he'll offer it to the Lord every day in his mind. One day in that kind of a meditation, when he was offering sweet rice, he thought, after having offered, that this sweet rice is too hot, how my Lord will eat it. And he just wanted to see how hot it is, and he just put his fingers. And when he put his finger got burnt, even though physically the sweet rice was not present in front of him. And it is mentioned that Lord Narayana and Lakshmi, they smiled from Vaikuntha. Lord Narayana, seeing that actually the Lord is not hungry for what we are offering. He is seeing with what mood, whether we are doing it with devotion, whether we have understood our position, who we are. There is a material covering of our position. Based on that, we are doing some material activities. But there is a spiritual wing of mind. That is how our constitutional position is. When we have understood that, and when we are engaging in devotional service, it becomes spiritualized. Does it help?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So how many rounds are you chanting, Harish? Sorry, go ahead. You had another question.
No, Prabhu. No. I'm done. That's thing.
How many rounds are you chanting?
I have been chanting 16 rounds, but these days, again, there were some mental tantrums. So at the time, Panduranga Das Prabhu has called me, and then that is why he emphasized on association with devotees. This has happened at a time when I lost my connections and something was happening. And it's
nice. Yeah, that's why this military discipline which Krishna uses, and Vigata Jura, the lethargy that we actually conditioned means, what is the meaning of the condition? That means we accept those conditions in this material world. Whichever conditions we are put in, we accept that, and we think this is what it is. And I'm in a foreign land, or I'm doing some activity, I have got a lot of responsibilities, I have got this deadlines to meet, and this is all I can do. I can't do spiritual activity. So we get conditioned. And that conditioning is something which Krishna is telling is unnecessary. We don't need to get conditioned to this material world. Come out of that conditioning. How do we come out? Engaging in devotional by giving up this lethargy. By giving up this, there is a sense of this like military discipline. The soldiers, if they do some mistake, they are it's not like there's a heavy punishment for they just have to do some steps or do some running around the ground or something like that. Like that, we need to remember that in our conditioned state, if we don't do this, then very soon the material energy will trap us. And very soon we will feel that this is not necessary. And we will go back to that same material rut. So that lethargy, giving of the lethargy is a very important thing which Krishna means. That's why that's the purpose of Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, Prabhu. Sure.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
No, Prabhu, nothing, no questions. I mean, I was doing a mindless chanting according to the explanations of Madhupandit Dasa, and Panduranga Prabhu has shared that episodes of course actually. And then I realized what was I doing for all these couple of months since I started this service. And that is when it is getting even more difficult for me to focus my mind on mindful chanting and then proceed or further to the next procedures.
You see, the first thing first in life is, the fundamentals should be very clear. And the first thing that we miss out in our understanding is who we are. We think I'm a man or I'm a woman, I'm married, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I have children, I have a job, I have so many responsibilities, I have parents, I have siblings, relatives, and I have to take care of all of them. In this, all the designations that we have created for ourselves, we forget that actually we are a spirit soul and part and parcel of the Lord. All these designations are temporary, will come to an end when our body comes to an end. Everything is over with that. Same brother, sister, mother, father, everything, they're gone in their own this thing. So that understanding of who we are, our understanding of our own self is not limited to our material body or mind. There is a spiritual aspect of it. And that spiritual aspect completes who we are. I'm not saying we are not father, mother, or anything of that sort. That is also there, but that is just the partial. So when we understand that we are a spiritual being, then there is the paradigm shift in the activities that we do. And in your life also, you can see how this process of devotion, when we take it and when we start following it slowly, we can see the difference in our own life, in our consciousness, in our satisfaction and bliss and everything we can see. To do that consistently, regularly, without fail, without missing, one has to read the instructions very clearly, very, very carefully, not superficially. The instructions of the scriptures, which we are trying to understand and read, are like gold mines. But to get the gold, you have to dig it. You have to spend time to understand each word which are spoken by Krishna and explained by Prabhupada. Then you start getting those gold, the real gems, and then your chanting becomes better, because the motivation for chanting comes when you understand who you are, what is your position in this material world, who's the Lord, and how do you revive that. When you do that, then chanting becomes better, and when the chanting becomes better, then your attraction to reading and hearing also improves. So these are all complementary things.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you.
Nice to hear your things. Actually, one thing is, even if it is just one line we understood, if we repeat that, it helps in our own. Repetition is a very important thing of what we said, what we heard, or what we read to anyone that you know. If you can explain that one thing that you understood, it remains for a longer time. Because where the challenge lies for all of us is in application of this knowledge. Maybe theoretically, when we are hearing, sometimes some things are not clear, but some things are clear. But when it comes to applying that in our lives, we don't do that. So the application comes, application is always followed by having completely convinced about that thing. And the conviction comes when we meditate and reflect and introspect. Then it goes to the next level.
Sure, Prabhu.
Any other thoughts, questions? Okay, no other question. We'll stop here. Okay, we do one. Can I request all of you to come in front of your camera? If not, it never happens that we are. I see all the people in the camera during the whole class, but at least the end. We will chant once Hare Krishna Mahamantra and then we will stop here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama.
Hare Hare.
Shri Nitai Gauranga Bhagavan ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai,
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai,
Nitai Gaur Premanand.
Hare 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 Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you for that.
Hare.